Mom, I'm heading down to the river. And that was the cry that you could hear up and down Cedar Avenue that summer. As the kids, as they got to be known, would come out the back doors, and back doors would slam like an exclamation point, announcing that they were on their way. And they were a group of 8 to 10 tow-headed, freckle-faced kids that you would see. Boys and girls ages somewhere between 10 and 11 that had finally gotten permission from mom and dad to explore on their own. So the river called to them, just like it calls to you, doesn't it? Life's energy flowing. So the kids would go down and they'd start to explore. They'd explore the weeds, they'd look at the ships coming down the river into the harbor. And one thing that they started to notice that they hadn't seen before was the old man that was always there at the dock. Now this was one of those characters that you always see around docks, just, you never know what he's done or where he's been, but he's always been in your lives. And so they asked their folks one night, said, who's the guy down there that's always sitting at the dock? They said, well, he's the captain. And they said, yeah, but what's his name? He said, nobody knows. He's just known as the captain. We know that he's been around. We know that he's been in charge. But now he's just there in our community. And so the kids said, well, that's great. We're just going to go down to the river and skip stones and swim and be kids. But then one day, Spike wanted to know more about the captain. And went up and said, Captain, tell me something. Why are you around? Tell me, how have you been so successful? And the captain said, well, it's easy. What's your name? Spike. Okay, Spike. Do you have friends? She said, yeah. Well, tell you what. And the captain pulled out a rope, because he always had a rope. He said, let me teach you about friendship. And he taught the kids the friendship knot. And he said, I teach it using the blue of the river as life's energy, and the yellow of the sky of renewing us. And it's blue over yellow, yellow, blue back over yellow. And for anyone that's done knots before, it's known as a square knot. But the captain called it the friendship knot. And he said, kids, he got them in a circle and said, okay, Mary Kate, Bob, Daniel, it's a friendship knot because the square knot is used for a piece of rope of equal diameter. Both sides are equal. So when you work with friends, do you treat them as equal? Or are you always in a competition? I'm smarter, I'm faster, I am much better looking with my haircut than you are. And those were the typical things that these middle schoolers, junior high, had been hearing on the playground. The captain said, that's not how I live my life. That's a knot. Not being in charge of somebody, but have the friendship knot. And the kids said, okay, that sounds good. And they went off and they skipped stones and they fished. But they kept coming back to work that knot with the captain. And he was patient. And as they went to that dungeon of doom that's known as junior high school, this group of the kids were the most popular. They weren't the fastest, they weren't the best looking, they weren't the smartest. But everybody they met, they treated as an equal. Everybody they met, they found a way that they could tighten the bonds of friendship. because they had the friendship knot. But the captain had a lot more experience because he'd been around the world on many a ship, and decided that as these kids were developing, they could use some more lessons. Just like as we develop as supervisors, managers, and leaders. We need more lessons of how we relate to people. So they came down and said, you know, Spike was still almost called Shrimp. And Bob had already grown to 6 foot at age 14. And they were wondering if the dynamics were different. He says, you all need the tugboat knot. And he had them look. He said, sit over here. You see the tugboat? The little small thing, their head nods went up and down, kind of like yours would go up and down now. Head nods would be good right about now if you know what a tugboat looks like. Okay? So here's this great big cargo ship bringing the day's supply into the port. But it's the tugboat, much more maneuverable, is able to get it in. And the captain said, you see those great big hawsers, which are also known as great big ropes that'll moor the ship? To get them down, we use the tugboat knot. And he pulled out, because he always had a bag with him. They always wanted ropes in the bag, so he pulled out some more rope. And he said, the tugboat knot is really to tie 2 ropes of unequal diameter, so that to get the great big hawser down, the tugboat knot is your smaller knot. It pulls in nice and tight. Try tying it while you're looking at the audience. See if it all just works. That's what the captain said. It's okay to make mistakes. It's not permanent, because then they were watching as the sailors on top of the deck would throw the small rope down to haul the great big rope. And the kids said, like you all would say, And how did it react? So now all of a sudden Spike said, well, I can do a lot to maneuver. I can do a lot because I'm more flexible than great big Bob. Spike's self-worth came up. All of a sudden Bob stopped getting frustrated that he couldn't do everything. And he saw how he could depend on Spike to be his tugboat. That was good. And life was good because they started to develop effective relationships of pulling in each other's strengths and acknowledging when they needed help. And unlike some of the adults in this audience today who feel I can never admit when I'm making a mistake, these kids were able to admit when they were making a mistake and needed help. Their abilities as managers when they grew up exceeded their peers. There was one last night that when Dano was having problems, he said, Captain, feels like my rope is just too long. He said, yeah, you're trying to do too much. So he said, what you need to remember is you've got friends, and you've got your life, and you've got your family. And when you have your family involved in your life, and you have your friends involved in your life, you can shorten the stress. And that's where he told them about breaking the stress. And that knot will come right out here. Come on, Sheepshank. He taught him how to reduce the stress with just 3 loops. I've been challenged when I tell this story of the captain and his knots. Are the people real? Well, the question is, yes, they are. Are they composites of people? Sure. But it's not important of who was the captain. What's important is who can you be the captain to? Who can you help share? And I wish upon each and every one of you the captain's blessing of fair winds and following seas. Mr. Toastman.